Yeah, I'll just can do the poll thing. Hello, YouTube! I'm here with my chat. There's a few people. I can't say they're going absolutely crazy because there are very many new cards for bolts in the set that you laser eyes upon. There are actually a couple of cards that I think could be useful in a Bola style deck. But that's not what we're going to talk about in this video. I know we're live, but I'm uploading this shit to YouTube because I actually I want this to be talked about. We're talking about the cards that are coming to Historic via the Enchanting Tales. So obviously not all of the enchantments that are in Enchanting Tales are going to be new to Historic. I'm only including the new ones, and I will be talking about the banned cards separately. So with each of these cards, what I did is I looked at, kind of what is already in Arena that can work nicely with these cards. And I'll talk a little bit about if I think they're going to be played at all, and things like that. So the first one, Blind Obedience. We already have Authority of the Consuls, right? Authority of the Consuls, though, is different in that, one, it costs a single mana. That cannot be understated. When you're going against aggro decks that are able to do really dumb things on turns 1 and 2, you really do want your stopgap to be as early as possible. And the difference between turn 1 and turn 2 is huge. That said, that's not the only thing. It also gains you life, right? The fact that it gains you life means it gives you more time, not just because they can't attack with their haste creatures, such as I can't remember that bitch's name. There's plenty of haste creatures that are annoying to play against. But not only can they not attack you immediately with those, but every time they play a new creature, right, you're getting a rebate essentially on the initial damage that you can deal. And if you're able to deal with that creature before they deal any damage, then you are at least plus 1 on life from that creature, right? Yeah. So Authority of the Consuls is something we already see. Do I think Blind Obedience is going to see play in its place? No. Might it see some play as an additional option? Maybe. Very good at Swift Spear and Haste Spells, yeah. There are decks that you have Authority of the Consuls in the sideboard for, right? But does Blind Obedience kind of play the same role? What's nice is that this hits artifacts as well. Now, I don't think there are a ton of the dumb artifact decks, but there are decks in the game that attempt to use artifact ramp to do stupid things. But I don't see them very frequently, so I doubt they're all that big of a deal. Now, the other benefit, I guess, to Blind Obedience is that it has Extort. So it has a way for you to gain life by essentially making your other spells cost a little bit more. But if you're in a situation where you have that extra mana, which you very frequently can, you're going to be able to use that. Excess mana, and it's going to be very helpful for you. I think very, very true, very nice and Brawl. I think that this is another card that you add to your Brawl decks. Notably, this is reminder text. So I think this can be played in whatever. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can play this in whatever. I don't can remember because I'm pretty sure this is the same as. Oh no, wait, no, this is rules text, not reminder text. I don't remember. I don't care. You can play this in your kind of taxi staxy decks. It's going to annoy your opponent. It's going to be even better in Brawl just because of the fact that it hits your opponent's mana rocks, which can screw up their sequencing. The Extort is going to be even better there just because you're going to be able to have more instances where you can nickel and dime them. If it sees play in Historic, I think it'll probably end up being a sideboard option in addition to Authority of the Consuls instead of replacing it, depending, of course, on the metagame. If the metagame is such that you really want artifacts to be coming in tapped, and or the creatures, gaining the single life isn't as important, say, against very large creature decks, things that are doing more of a mid-range style aggressive strategy, big 2-drops, big 3-drops, even some 4-drops, then I think you could maybe see just running Obedience instead. Grasp of Fate, I'm fairly certain. Yep, that's correct. Grasp of Fate, I do not see mattering at all. Grasp of Fate, I was actually a little confused by its inclusion, just because, it only really matters in multiplayer. Wizards has said that they still want to add multiplayer, but like it's not something that'll be coming anytime soon. So I don't get it. I don't necessarily get its inclusion. Like it's just another Banishing Light style effect that we have several different versions of already, and this doesn't do anything really different. Gosh, there's one that I didn't even think to look up. Goodness me, it's a relatively played EDH card, and I just do not remember what it's called. I don't think it's Active Authority. It actually is Active Authority. This only hits artifacts and enchantments. Still, I think this would be more interesting, just because it allows you to do it twice, and then like you give your opponent control of it. So there are more interesting things that you can do with this card that you can't really do with like Grasp of Fate, because it's just another Oblivion Ring style effect. Great Oromancy. This, I don't know if technically we have a better option for this, but we have Sterling Grove. If you're playing the enchantment deck, you're almost certainly going to be playing green, unless you're maybe playing a white-black, more like removal focused one with Hateful Eidolon. But I haven't really seen that see play since Eidolon came out. Additionally, this lets you get a specific enchantment, and being able to tutor a specific enchantment is nuts. Great Oromancy does give you a bonus to your enchanted creatures, but one, it doesn't matter if you're going to enchant a creature that isn't enchanted yet, because your opponent can still target that creature and kill it before the enchantment goes on, blah blah blah, right? It still removes that. But also, a lot of the creatures you're playing in these Enchantress style decks are in and of themselves enchantments. And as such, I don't think that this is going to be super important as an addition. Again, unless you are looking to play a non-green version. I guess another place this is nice to have is in a brawl situation where you don't have access to green in your commander's color identity. Maybe you're playing something like Alayla, who is white, blue, and black, right? You can't actually play Sterling Grove, but you still want to be playing enchantments. Then Oromancy works there. Karmic Justice, I don't get this. This is another one that very much is this is only really good in multiplayer, and even then it's like fine. Like, it can't be a creature, right? So sure, you get to destroy one of their creatures, or one of their lands, sure, I guess, but like, board wipes aren't gonna matter, right? The main things that are gonna be using this for, or that your opponent is going to be destroying, are going to be your creatures, right? Sure, they can, if you make a planeswalker deck and they like destroy your planeswalkers, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess like that. The thing is, I feel like when you play this card, your opponent is just gonna kill you in the face. This card does not do anything. The turn it comes down. Even if you're playing like a non-creature based combo, where you're going to, like, your opponent is probably going to be destroying some of your stuff, I'd rather just play more redundant copies of that thing, and or ways to find it, or protection that isn't based on your opponent doing a specific thing, right? This is only destroys. So if your opponent exiles something, if your opponent counters something, right, this is not going to help against that. I don't think Karmic Justice makes any sense. I don't even get it for Historic Brawl. I guess maybe if you're playing an enchantment style deck, and then like your opponent blows up all your enchantments, then you can destroy all their lands or something like that. I guess in that situation, sure. But there's no way that I can think of on Arena, at least, where you can kind of force your opponent to destroy the things of yours that aren't creatures. So I don't think this card makes much sense coming to Arena, but whatever. Phyrexian Unlife. This is a redundant copy in a combo deck. That's pretty much what it is. Combo deck Solemnity 9 lives, Now you have another 3-mana enchantment called Phyrexian Unlife. So if your opponent has a ways of naming cards so that you can't play them, this can be additional 9 lives. Obviously, if they get rid of Solemnity, you're still screwed. But it's the same is true with 9 lives. I guess that's another positive for Greater Oromancy, is just the fact that, like, you can play it in a mono-white Solemnity combo deck. Yeah, so if you don't know, Solemnity makes so players can't get counters. As long as you don't lose the game for having 0 less life, as long as you have 0 less life, all damage is dealt to you as though it had Infect, which means it's dealt to you in the form of poison counters, but you can't get poison counters, and as such, you won't die. Very similar to 9 lives, where if Source would deal damage, you prevent that damage, but you put a counter on this. Somebody also says, nah. Somebody also says, nah, things can't get counters put on them. So, you know, there's potential that this is going to maybe give second life to the Solemnity 9 lives combo. I have not seen much of it recently, and I think maybe a lot of that is just the fact that, like, the other than 9 lives, right? The enchantments are relatively easy to just blow the fuck up. You can counter them, you can discard them. You know, I'm interested to see if Unlife can boost the combo. Yeah. Compulsion. I don't think... Oh, right. Okay, I did. So I did technically look at other cards. The only things I could think of... Because Compulsion doesn't make any fucking sense to me at all. Looks like it's only been printed in Torment, but even then, no one cares about it. It won a deck in 2003. That's interesting. So you can sacrifice it to draw a card. Seems not great. You can pay 2 and discard a card to draw a card, and the only thing I could think of was Madness. There might be other discard synergies that are like self-discard synergies. Obviously, there is Waste Not, which I think does include your own discarding. I don't remember. But even with the Madness cards that are on... Oh, god dang it. I forget I do this sometimes. Yeah, it does not look like anything changed. Even with the Madness cards that are on Arena, I don't think it's worth running this card in those decks, right? So in this situation, right, instead of paying 3 to cast Alms of the Vein, you can pay 3 to cast Alms of the Vein, but you get to draw a card, right? This, you know, reasonable. This is the same cost, I guess. It draws you a card, but it kind of goes against the whole thing. Whatever. Again, like, just none of these feel super great in a deck that has to include blue, right? You'll see that we have one blue Madness card, and the rest are not blue. I don't see it. There are discard synergies. I know that. I don't see this card being worth running at all. Copy enchantment. I think it's the same thing. I don't think there are any enchantments in the game right now that matter to copy. Where you would rather just play an additional copy of that card, a redundant pseudo copy of that card, or protection for that card. I don't see it. Maybe in Brawl, where you're playing an enchantment deck. Again, you're playing it with blue, so maybe this is more of an Alayla thing. You are in a situation where, like, hey, I have some really good enchantments. It'd be insane if I had multiple of those things. And then I can see it. But at normal store, nah. It ain't it, Chief. Force Fruition. Don't give your opponents more cards. There, I think, was like... Yeah, okay, I did do one card with it. If you're playing a deck where you're also running Omniscience, you could cast Force Fruition and then Harmless Offering it to your opponent so that then you can keep drawing cards with your Omniscience until you can kill your opponent with the card that you've drawn off Omniscience. Notably, though, this is not a May ability. it's always exactly 7 cards. Look, it's too much to work around to get an okay effect. Grizzlebrand's in the game, right? Is Grizzlebrand? Grizzle? I don't think you're banned in. I'm about to put Grizzlebrand banned. You're not banned in Historic, are you? Yeah, you're legal in Historic. I'd rather just play Grizzlebrand. Because Grizzlebrand, fun fact, can hit your opponent in the face. Force Fruition, just I don't get it in this. Fraying Sanity, hey, it's a card that we should have had anyway. This is another situation where Wizards is padding stuff in. Well, I guess the difference is like this is not a Historic only set. This is not a Historic only situation. It is a situation where, hey, we want to reprint Fraying Sanity. It happens to be coming to Historic. Sure, whatever, I guess. But they should already have been on Arena. When it comes to whether or not this card lets you play, I don't know. Obviously, you can enchant yourself, so you can really like double down. Yeah, you can double down on your own self mill. You can hit your opponent with stuff, but I'll see something like Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Tasha's Hideous Laughter. And this exiles, right? So it doesn't work with Fraying Sanity anyway. I just don't think that this card is going to be great in a non-brawl situation. In brawl, this is actually very helpful because you are limited on the copies of the mill spells that you can cast. So being able to double dip, as it were, in any of your mill spells would definitely be helpful, especially if you are running the guild guy who doubles mills. Hatching plans. I looked. This used to be a rare? Really? I looked to see if there were any like cards that care about specifically sacrificing enchantments. I did not find any. You have to be playing a deck that is actively able to sacrifice enchantments, because there aren't a ton of ways to do that. And you have to be wanting to draw the 3 cards anyway. I don't understand. I don't understand why they put this in the Enchanting Tales to begin with. Like Fraying Sanity. Fraying Sanity, I get. People like Mill. They also hate Mill. This card was a rare from Guild Pact that is not worth anything, and is still not worth anything. No one's playing this anywhere. Like actually, card analysis on EDA Trek. It's played in exactly 822 decks. Sacrifice a permanent, sacrifice a creature or enchantment. That's gonna Tog, so I don't know that. And then you can make it a creature. Like, I got nothing to say. It's not good. On to the black cards. Bitter Blossom, hell yeah. I'm thinking token nonsense. So this card is better than Dreadhorde Invasion and Skrull's Hive. It's better than those cards because 1, the tokens have flying. Flying is very important. And 2, they can block. And 3, it doesn't pile on a single creature. You can spread things out, which often is going to be a little bit more helpful for you. That said, why only play one of them when you can play 8 Blossom or 12 Blossom? So you play 4 Bitter Blossom, 4 Dreadhorde Invasion, and 4 Skrull's Hive. And you just be making tokens. Obviously, you want to play something like Intangible Virtue, which is in, thanks to Historic Anthology. So now your creature tokens are bigger and have vigilance. And then you optionally can play things like Sorin, Vengeful Bloodlord, just so that you can have lifelink on your creatures. I was trying to find a thing that gave all your creatures lifelink for cheaper. I did not find one. That said, Sorin is still fine. Like, Sorin's still a fine creature. Fine planeswalker. And you're probably going to have a couple of creatures in the deck that you want to be able to get back, so something like that's fine. You also have access to potentially Teysa instead, but then you care about like dying triggers, which for what it's worth, you can have this be a token death deck that uses Blood Artist and like Yahenni to really make value out of those tokens, because then if you have a sack outlet and you have a Blood Artist, then each of your Bitter Blossom tokens can, 1, block things that don't have trample, you sack them, then you regain the life that you lost, and you hurt your opponent, right? So you have situations there that I think are very interesting in an Orzhov-based token strategy. I would like to play 12 Blossom. So we'll see how well that works. Dark Tutelage. This is just a worse Phyrexian Arena. Like, you always will lose 1 life, so technically if you hit a land, you're losing more life than you would have. Yes, it costs double black, which makes it harder to play, but when are you playing Phyrexian Arena and not a mono black deck, and or a brawl deck that does not care about having 2 pips of black? You could say this is a redundant copy of Phyrexian Arena in a brawl situation, I guess. Notably, you don't draw the card, so it gets around things like Narset. But even with all that, losing the life equal to his MV is not great. It's like, the thing is, it's like Bob. It's like Dark Confidant. Except Dark Confidant can attack and block. It's a lot easier to get rid of Dark Confidant when you no longer want it around, but also it can attack and block. This can't do that. This, you will constantly be getting hurt, and there's nothing you can do about it, really. Great Pact. Cool. Maybe this is a sideboard option for the sacrifice deck where your opponent is just playing like really big creatures or something. Obviously it's fine in a deck where like in like a brawl deck, I suppose, where getting to 4 mana is not crazy. But like, sure, there's Mayhem Devil. The sacrifice deck that includes Mayhem Devil is going to be faster than wanting Grave Pact for the most part. And then again, with Yeheni, like, yes, you can get sacks whenever you want for free, but I feel like this is just not, this doesn't fit in any of the sacrifice decks that you'll want to see. And it, again, like, it would have to be a sideboard card because not every deck you come against is going to have sufficient number of creatures for you to care about, right? The sacrifice decks tend to run Gigantha? I think it's Gigantha, one of the companions that doesn't let you have multiple pips, right? So this couldn't be played in that deck, unless, of course, you have it in the sideboard and then post-sideboard you just don't have access to your companion, which seems strange to me because you're using a sideboard slot but losing value from it in the secondary games. So I generally don't think this is going to do much. We've so far seen relatively few cards that I think are going to do much. Oppression. It's funny. Notably, it hits you, right? Whenever a player casts a spell, that player discards a card. If you don't have any cards in your hand, who cares? Another issue, though, is if your opponent doesn't have any cards in their hand, who cares? And that's one of the biggest issues with the discard decks, right? Is it's easy to get your opponent to a situation where they have no cards in hand. At that point, though, your discard effects suck. Your discard effects no longer matter at all. And you're both in top deck mode, and hopefully you top deck fewer of your discard spells than they top deck good spells, right? That said, I don't think it's Garbo, because you do have things like Waste Not's opponent. Okay, fine, but you do have things like Waste Not. So, you know, playing this on turn 2 into Oppression on turn 3 can really make it annoying for your opponent to cast fucking anything, which is nice, right? But again, I feel like this card doesn't do what the discard decks need, right? The discard decks need ways to convert their discard spells when their opponent is out of cards, to convert their discard spells into something they can use once they get their opponent at a point where they no longer have cards. Orbital Cemetery is interesting. So it's in Jumpstart 2022. I checked on Arena. I'm fairly certain this one did not come to Arena, which I don't necessarily get. But again, the situation is where this could have been already in Arena. it's an interesting card. It's a very interesting card because there are ways to have only good creatures in your yard, right? Beginning of your upkeep, if you have 4 more creature cards in your graveyard, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. It does get put in your hand, so you still do need some sort of like way to cast it. Like if it went to the battlefield, that'd be nuts. You have things like mulch, right, where you can just get the land cards and the rest go into the graveyard, so you can play only like the good creatures. But you have to get 4, and you still have to cast the creature. So I'm not sure if this card could be good. My guess is that it can't. Looted Bonds. Hey, look, it's a land thing. If you're playing the LD deck, or like a land hate deck, like maybe this is fine in a brawl where you're coming up against people who are constantly ramping. But even then, the situation becomes like this is not great in 1v1. You know, why the waifu one costs so much? Like, I get it. This card has not been reprinted since Shadowmore. Why is the waifu one cost so fucking much? People need to chill. This card is better in multiplayer because of the fact that you're going to gain more life, so that you can recoup the tempo loss of playing this on 5 and doing nothing else. Right? This does nothing on turn 5, and by turn 5, it's possible that your opponent's only going to play a couple more lands that game. Again, unless they're ramping, which is why this is better in multiplayer decks or multiplayer formats. You do have ways of forcing them to add more lands, such as Ghost Quarter, Field of Ruin, and Demolition Field. But they can just choose not to get the land. Now, obviously, boom, that's land destruction. But you're doing this after you've played Polluted Bonds on 5 mana, right? So not only do you have to get to 5 mana, you have to get to 5 mana without them playing something that's going to kill you. You have to then sacrifice your own lands. Yes, you can get them back, but you still have to pay mana to sacrifice them to destroy their lands, and hope that they don't have enough lands that they need to get a replacement for the land you just destroyed, so that you can get a 4 life difference. Not good, is what I'm saying. Sanguine Bond, fuck yes. I understand this costs 5 mana. It is a 2-card combo with Exquisite Blood. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So let's say you play Sanguine Bond, then you play Exquisite Blood. Let's say you play a land that gains you 2 life, or 1 life, whatever, one of the tap lands. You just gained life, and as such, I'm going to make target opponent lose 1 life. Oh no, my opponent has lost 1 life. I'm going to gain 1 life. Oh no, a trigger. I've gained a life, my opponent now has to lose a life. And so on and so on. The thing is, the reason I like this better than this is because this can just kill your opponent. What I really like about this is you can just be playing a control deck, a normal black-based control deck that uses these as a win con, right? As enchantment. But yeah, so you can play it in like a Fires of Invention deck, where you're also playing things like Kolaghan's Command. Hey, look, a very cheap and easy way to hit your opponent for 2, while also being a generally good card. We still don't have Dreadbore, which is just fucking rude. But yeah, like you can still just be playing You have Bone Crusher Giants, Murder's Rider, like those cards that just generally are good. You can play some of the cool channel cards as well in a deck like that, where you can double dip on your inventors, your Fires of Invention stuff. I like this. I like this. I'm glad the combo's in. I'm going to try to make it a thing. We'll see if it works. I'm dying. Vampiric Rites. There are better ways to sacrifice things. Also, it should have already been on Arena. You get the draw card, sure. It's a permanent thing. So, like, it's something where you don't have to hold up. You don't have to have the card. Village Rites or Altar of Blood or whatever whatever sacrifice thing people use nowadays. The spell, the like 2-mana spell that like sacks a thing and draws 2 cards or whatever. Like, you don't have to have that in your hand, which is good. All you need is the mana. So that is nice. That is something that gives this a bit of value. But I just don't think that the sacrifice decks need this. The sacrifice decks might not need anything. Are they still relatively played? Goldfish decks, popular decks, metagame. Looks like format historic. Rakdos mid. Is Rakdos mid just sacrifice? It's not. Okay. So the sack decks could use a little bit of help. I assume this jump mid-range is sack. It also is not sack. Because Jarzel is just stupid. Okay. Yeah, I don't think that this card is particularly helpful to the sack decks. On to red. Aggravated Assault. Hey, look, another combo. This is 3-card technically, because you need a creature. But. Another card that they're adding to the game, they're adding to Arena, combos with this card. So we have Aggravated Assault, the 3-mana enchantment, comes down relatively quickly, but it does cost 5 mana to untap all the creatures you control. After this main phase, there's an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. Activated Sorcerer. That's fine. Because they're also giving us Nature's Will. 4-mana enchantment. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, tap all lands that players control, and untap all lands you control. So now, right, you have the enchantment on turn 3. On turn 4, you play Nature's Will. You have Aggravated Assault on turn 3. Turn 4, you have Nature's Will. And then, yeah, you would need 1 more mana, so technically turn 5. You hit your opponent. You untap your stuff. Then you pay the 5 mana that you have. And then you hit them again. And you untap your stuff. And you do it until they're dead. The thing, though, is, but Justin, how am I going to get through for the damage on turn 5? There are cards that are like, hey, you can't block me, fuck off. Hasty Creature, always nice, just to be able to get down and do stuff. But you have things like Changing Outcast, right? You got Ginger Brute, right? These are some cards that can come down, can't be blocked very easily, and are just generally good. Invisible Stalker I put because it also has hexproof, which is nice because then like your opponent can't interact with it. Ginger Brute has haste and can't be blocked, which is nice. Changeling Outcast doesn't have the ability to have haste, but it is just another one of those really early cards. So you could literally, on turn 1 or 2, right, turn 1 or 2, you can play a creature that can't be blocked or can't easily be blocked. If you didn't play that on turn 1, you played it on turn 2, or if you played it on turn 1, played a redundant is only one card that allows you to make a thing and like have it sack. So there is a 3-card combo with this. You play Goblin Bombardment. You play the 5-mana 4/4 Enrage Dinosaur that when it is dealt damage, make a 1/1. And then you have any way to give it indestructible. So Manuel, let's say Heroic Intervention. I'm pretty sure that gives Hexproof, not Shroud. So you Heroic Intervention, have it get dealt damage somehow, you know, sacrifice one of your other things. You ping it, you have infinite pings. Cool. That doesn't actually give you infinite tokens, right? Because now you need an additional thing to get the value from having a bunch of ETBs, which would be either like a Blood Artist type thing or something else, and at that point, like, you probably are better off just playing something else. This is a card where it has very obvious good applications. I shouldn't say this. I should say this is a card. Did I just? What the? I may or may not. Oh, there it is. I don't know how I didn't find it. This is a card that may or may not slot into sack style decks, but there's some room in there for Johnnies. Yes, Johnnies. Yeah, Sweep the Leg. Impact Tremors. I got nothing. I got nothing. There's, you know, this is like Perforos Light. You could play it in a deck again, like that Super Enchantment deck, I suppose. Hey, what's up, Transit? You could play it in that Super Enchantment deck that I was talking about, 12 Blossom. So you can like triple dip on whenever you make tokens, like you're hurting your opponent. That's a lot of enchantments. They're all relatively cheap, right? So theoretically, 12 Bitter Blossom style cards, 12 Goblin. Well, what do you want? A full 12? You'd want the full 12 Impact Tremors. Right, so that puts you at 16. Let's say you only want. No, okay, let's have 12. Okay. So we have 12 Goblin Bombardment. We want the villages have the sack outlay, right? So that brings us to 20. Then we have. Do we play the Blood Artists? I mean, I think you do, right? So you play the 4 Blood Artists. So that's 24 cards, all that cost exactly 2 mana. They all cost exactly 2 mana. So you play the Blood Artist. I guess you can play Creativity, because even then, right, like you're sacking a creature to get the exact creature you need to kill your opponent, which is the Blood Artist. I think the deck just made itself. All right, we're going to make that deck once I'm done talking about these cards. I'm gonna pull up Aether Hub in the other window. Because since all of your cards are gonna cost exactly 2, you can really skimp out on the mana there. You're playing like Mardu. You can probably get away with having some amount of hand attack. Obviously, you're gonna want some amount of destruction effects. I think the deck makes itself. So you know what? I was too mean on you initially, Impact Tremors. I think my stupid, what was it, 24 twos deck is going to be great. Lane of Lightning. This card is bad. Sure, you could maybe have it for free. Maybe. But then you have to, sure, it's any spell. It's not just instant sorceries. Woo, whoop-de-doo. You could pay 1 to deal 1 damage. You can't even hit creatures with it. No, this card's bad. This will not see play anywhere in Historic. Mana Flare. Again, this wasn't one where I could find a specific card. You have to be playing essentially like a Gruul ramp deck where you can get value out of this immediately, right? Because one of the issues is that if you can't get value out of this immediately, your opponent's the person who gets value out of this. Doubling your opponent's mana is not good for you. In fact, I would say it's very bad for you. I'm adjusting my blanket. X deck? What? I don't know what X deck means. But you have to be playing a situation where like your X cost Oh, even then, I don't think it's worth it. Because you need to be able to use that mana immediately, right? You need to be able to have more value. You're going to want more lands, perhaps, or you're going to want to be destroying your opponent's lands so that they don't get as much value. But then, since you're destroying your opponent's lands, which is to hamper their mana, you're unhampering their mana as much because you're playing Mana Flare. But also, if you're playing a land destruction deck, there are other probably better like there's. I don't know if this fits into the LD deck. Maybe it does. Maybe it does. But I'm not sure. I don't think Mana Flare is good enough for Historic. Unless there's something like some Johnny stuff that I'm missing. I just, as general card, I don't think it's great. Repercussion. I don't think I put anything specific on this either. No, I didn't. Repercussion is a very hilarious card in EDH. Again, I come to the situation where I don't know how to give your opponents a bunch of creatures at once. So I don't know how to really get enough value out of this, because again, it deals that much damage to the creature's controller, right? So your opponent needs to have creatures, and if they don't, this card is dead. This card does nothing. But not only does it need to have creatures, it needs to have a decent amount of creatures so you can just murder them with something like burn down the house, for example, right? They only need 4 creatures, but they have to have 4 creatures in order for them to die from 20. There are ways that you can make a deck like that, some sort of creatureless, because again, you don't want to kill yourself, right? So some sort of creatureless red-based controlling strategy against other control decks. You're boned, probably, because they're probably not going to have enough creatures. You have to survive, and then you have to kill them with a board wipe and stuff. The deck is possible. There is a deck here. I don't know if it's good enough in Historic to matter. And mainly, like, the biggest reason is, like, there are decks that just don't have a ton of creatures in them. The decks that do, sure, it's great, fine, whatever. There aren't a ton. And again, like, you're going to want to play as few creatures as possible, if not 0, because this will hit you too. Notably, this does stack, because it's a trigger. So if you have 2 repercussions, both of them will trigger. So if your opponent has a single creature, you have 2 repercussions out, you lightning bolt their creature. I know bolt isn't in the game. Well, it's in the game. It's not in Historic for some reason. It's probably too good in the red based decks. Red based decks, red black decks are stupid in Historic right now. But right, you lightning bolt their creature. It's 3 damage, but it triggers twice. You get 6 damage to their face. Now if you have something like Torbrand, right? Notably though, the way Torbrand works, the way Torbrand works is it only cares about the opponent, right? So what's nice is that Torbrand won't double the damage that you're going to deal to yourself if you have Torbrand, but it also won't. You don't get the double dip, right? Because no, you do. Yeah, actually, you do. Yeah. Yeah, so if you have 1 repercussion, a Torbrand, and your opponent has a single creature, you lightning bolt that creature. Torbrand makes it do 5 damage instead, and then repercussion. Okay, I had to make sure repercussion is the one that deals the damage, not the creature. Then repercussion would deal 7 damage. I guess you do get the double dip. God damn it. I convinced myself to make this garbage deck. It's not good. I don't know how you give your opponent a bunch of creatures. Like, Harmless Offering is not enough. Like, that card is not going to help you enough. I don't know how to give them a bunch of creatures while making it so you don't die. I'll probably figure it out. Shared Animosity. Know what I had for this? These are all the slivers in Historic. Go nuts. Honestly, like, that's... If you want to do Shared Animosity stuff, like, the thing is, it's representing goblins here. I don't even think it's worth it in goblins, unless it's a brawl deck. I don't even think it's worth it in slivers, because it isn't a sliver or a thing that makes you have more slivers. Like, and So for example, right? Let's say we've got a predatory sliver out, and we got and a striking sliver, right? We got 2 slivers out. Would I rather play a tempered sliver or a spiteful sliver, right? Or even a redundant lancer sliver or whatever sliver? Like, would I rather have one of those or a non-creature, right? I would rather just have the creature. So, essentially, is what I'm saying. Defense is hard. Onto the green cards. Again, I don't know how you give your opponent creatures. You can obviously do stupid things with this. Obviously, right? If you're able to get your opponent to have 3 creatures, and you just have stupid creatures in your deck, maybe a 2-card combo, for example, right? There are 2-card creature combos in Arena. You know, you can get one of those. Then sure, cool. What to do? The issue is, how do you get your opponent? How do you get a random opponent to have 3? Right? You can let your opponent have 3 creatures easily, right? There plenty of decks are going to have 3 creatures. You need to survive. Your enchantment needs to survive. And you can't roll into a deck that like doesn't have creatures, because then like you're boned. Obviously, you could have maybe a transformational sideboard with this, right? Where, for what it's worth, most of my criticism has been best of 3s for like all of this stuff. I should probably mention that. You could have a situation where you have 4 of these in the deck or in a sideboard, as well as some number of 2 creature cards that work together. Search your library for up to 2 creature cards. Oh, they don't even have to have a different name, I guess. Notably, you don't cast them, so you don't get cast benefit. This is on your upkeep, so they can't attack immediately unless you have ways to give them haste, right? I need to figure out if there are... I don't want to look through all of the cards on Arena, but I need to find a way if there's like a consistent way to just give your opponent creatures that suck, preferably. I just don't know if there is. No, we need the Hunted cycle. Hunted Dragon, target opponent creates 3 goats. Hunted Horror, target creates 3 thingies. Hunted Lamasul, you make a 4/4. Phantasm is probably the best one, frankly. You give them 5 goblins. Oh god, that'd be so good. This one gives them 4 fairies. This is also a relatively decent one. You know what? Honestly, all of these would be fine. All of these would be fine. The best ones for the decks that I've been talking about, though, would be Hunted Troll and Hunted Phantasm. Imagine Phantasm in the Reverberation deck or whatever. Where are you? In the Repercussion deck. You play that, you only have 1 creature. They have 5 creatures. You then immediately go boom. Cool. Good stuff. Actually, let's see. So you play Repercussion, then you play Hunted. Let's say you have 6 mana. You play Repercussion. You have 6 mana. Repercussion's already out. You play the Phantasm, and then immediately like Deafening Clarion, right? 5/3. That's 15 damage, and they possibly have already taken the damage anyway. You're only taking 3. Hey Wizards, give us the Hunted cards. This is bullshit. Doubling Season. The card is too slow. Oh, cool. We have it for Brawl. I don't care. Whoop-de-doo. We have it for Brawl. In normal Historic, it does not matter. Ground Seal. What does this do? Like, seriously, what does this do? Nothing. You get to draw a card. Cool. Whoop-de-doo. Cards in graveyards can't be the targets of spells or abilities. That includes yours. So, there are cards. The thing is, the issue with this card is that in many situations, because this says spells or abilities, in many situations, if you want to protect your own graveyard, it's possibly because you want to target things in your graveyard, right? Actually, do I have? No, I don't. Such as with Greasefang, right? You need to be targeting things. With reanimation spells, you need to be targeting things. Sure, you have Escape. Okay, whatever, right? Like, So when you want to protect your own graveyard, this is not how to do it. When you want to attack your opponent's graveyard, this is also not exactly how you want to do it, because a lot of the ways to attack your opponent's graveyard need to target, or there are just better things. Leyline of the Void, or Rest in Peace to make it so nothing goes in there anyway. What is the name of the card? It's like the new vehicle that like taps, and you can like exile 2 cards from a graveyard. Stuff like that, right? You have those things, Relic of Progenitus, stuff like that to remove a graveyard. Some of which do directly target. It's not good. I do not see this card seeing play in any sideboard. Because I feel like even Weathered Runestone is just generally better than it. Yeah. Yeah, because like with that, stuff can't be cast or enter from graveyard. Right? Like it protects against almost everything, maybe? Maybe everything on Arena. I don't think it does anything. Nature's Will, we kind of already talked about with Aggravated Assault. This is like a Feast and Famine card. Actually, when I was looking at Aggravated Assault to make the list of cards that could use this, or could use the Aggravated Assault, I searched like cards that are on Arena, and then like untap lands just to see different ways you can untap lands. And then I saw this, and I was like, wait, this isn't on Arena. And I was like, oh, it's coming to Arena. Because it showed me this one when I searched it. We all know it's all about this one. Yeah. Gross. But yeah, like, you know, I talked about that already. Probably figure, hey, it's like Doubling Season, but worse. And you might be saying, Justin, how is it worse than Doubling Season? Easily. Let's go back to Doubling Season. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, creates twice that many instead. If an effect will put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many instead. Notably, there is a negative associated with this one, which is you get double negative counters from your opponent. Whatever. Generally doesn't matter. If 1 or more tokens would be created, twice that many are created instead. This includes your opponent's stuff. This, though, does kind of get around the negative of having -1 counters on your creatures. However, notably, this isn't any type of counter, so you don't get to double dip on your Planeswalkers, which is one of the big reasons that Doubling Season is stupid. Will these both see play in Brawl? Probably, maybe. Will he play in Historic at like normal? No, absolutely not. Even the +1/+1 counter decks, like that are in normal Historic, don't want these. They cost way too much. Prismatic Omen. So at first I was like, obviously. Where are you? Obviously, you have the dumb 5-color commanders, right? Bada bing, bada boom. You have an additional way to make all of your lands produce whatever mana you need, right? Then I was thinking about it more, and I was like, hey, I have a Naya deck that uses Domain. Drag to the Bottom can finally be a reasonable card. Play some sort of domain-based control deck. You got Drag to the Bottom, you got Prismatic Omen, you got Leyline Binding. Apparently I didn't put all of the domain cards, because you also have the one that hits them in the face, right? Like, there are ways that you can make... Yeah, but Lantern? Lantern is different. Lantern lets them tap for any. Oh, I must have hit tab on accident. Yeah, Lantern makes it tap for any color. It doesn't give them the color. Additionally, I think in general, artifacts are going to be more vulnerable than enchantments. I think in general. That might end up not being the case in Historic or Historic Brawl. I can't think of that right now. But the fact that Prismatic Omen gives them the basic land type is what makes this actually, like, kind of reasonable, you know? Now, the thing is it good enough to make the domain deck such that you don't just play a bunch of Tri-lands? I don't know. Because you could just play a bunch of Tri-lands. I guess one thing it does do is you could give it a couple of base colors, right? You could just make it an Abzan base deck maybe. And then all of your red and blue cards are going to be based off of being able to use Prismatic Element. I don't know if that's worth doing. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to help out or hinder things more often than not. So it remains to be seen. But those are the things that I did think about when it comes to that. Hey, look, it's Utopia Sprawl. At first, I thought very little of this card. I was like, cool, we're getting Utopia Sprawl. Who cares? Then I realized this is an additional ramp card for the Enchantress decks. But this is a ramp card that can come down on turn 1. It can only enchant a forest, which is kind of fine. They're still playing Temple Gardens. Still playing a decent number of forests. But it's Wolf Hollowhaven that comes down potentially a turn earlier, but also makes it so you can get any different color. I mean, you have to choose the color, but you still can get that different color. Right? So if you have a hand that has, for example, Forest, Utopia Sprawl, and Sithis, you can play, or let's say Sithis as well as some other 1-mana enchantment. By the way, I did include Sithis here. Right, you have some sort of 1-cost enchantment that's also white. Maybe it's Authority of the Consuls, for example. Right, you can go Forest, Utopia Sprawl, choose white. Next turn, tap that one forest, play Sithis, play the other forest. Oh, you'd have to. Sorry, the other thing would have to be green. Shut the fuck up. But you play the forest and play some green enchantment that I don't care about. Maybe another Utopia Sprawl. Who knows? I think that this card will see play in the Enchantress style decks. I legitimately think that this being a 1-mana enchantment that is free. Right? This is free. So let's say you're in a situation where you have Sithis already out, you have an untapped forest, you have another untapped green source. You use the untapped green source, cast the Utopia Scroll, trigger targeting the untapped forest. Sithis trigger, you draw a card. Right? So the card has replaced itself. Right? It's now enchanting that forest. Right? You can now tap that forest for 2 mana, replacing its cost. It is a free card. It makes your deck smaller, while also doing other things in other situations, like ramping you on turn 1, for example. So you can play this on turn 1. It's not a Llanowar Elf, so it can't be bolted, for example. And then you can have 3 mana on turn 3. That's a little bit less easy for your opponent to bone. I think it's interesting. Sure, it can only enchant forest, but I don't think that matters. I legitimately do believe that Enchantress style decks will play it. I think they'll be reasonable as well. And so that is the end for that video. So, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that cool nonsense. Until next time, all will be one.